A common problem that a lot of the Anistic clients have is that they want to do EPDs. Okay, they want to actually sort of look at the environmental impact of their product. But, so, they've either got, hundreds or in one case, like thousands of products. And they're coming to me saying, well, look, how do we do EPDs for such a wide range of products? So I thought I'd just grab a cup of coffee, and just go through that today, just as I've got a practical way of how you can get EPDs for your products if you've got a lot of them, which is particularly relevant, I think, for manufacturers, retailers, or wholesalers, anybody who kind of import, export, where you've got a large product range. So if you're in that category and you want to look at the environmental impact of your products, this is the video for you. Okay, let's have a look, shall we? Okay, so I've got my cup of coffee. Let's have a look at, EPDs for a large number of products, okay? And I'm going to cheat. Okay, there's a big cheat in this. There's a big simplification that I'm going to make in this, which I hope you're going to like, and I'll take you through that step by step. The first thing to do is to kind of think about, what the problem is, and that's because if you do an EPD, if I just bring up the sort of let me just show you this. These are the different product carbon footprints that we support on the Anistic carbon accounting platform. And this level 5 down here, which is the EPD, is the most complicated one, but it's got a lot in it. You've got the ISO 14040, 1444, 15804. You've got the product category rules, which again is another ISO standard. And then you've got this box over here. Oh, you can't see it. It's under my image in the screen. But the verification and publication column here, they have to be verified and published. That means the typical time frame for doing an EPD, I've never seen them done in less than 3 months. 6 months is a good kind of rule of thumb. And cost-wise, I don't know, 10, 15,000 a pop, So there are a lot of work. And if you've got a range of 1,000 products, that's a lot of money, okay? So to make it simpler, let's have a think about why you want the EPDs, okay? Now, pop that away there. So, generally, you're going to want an EPD for one reason and one reason only, which is your clients have asked you for an EPD. Okay, they've said, look, we want to be greener. We've committed to certain obligations, and that means that, we have to look at our supply chain. We would like you to tell us what the carbon footprint is of your product. Okay, that's the 99% of people do that. Some people, 1%, say we want to do the right thing for the environment. We want to go down this route. But ultimately, I think that's because they want to give it to their stakeholders. They want to show their stakeholders that they're greener. That could be directors, etc. But it's largely clients. Okay, so this is predominantly driven by client pressure. And if you look at another standard, let's pull this back up again. Let's go to this standard here, and this is grossly simplified, all right? So, but this is from ISO 1440, which says, well, why are you doing the EPD in the first place? So it says, if you're going to be doing it, you have to think about what you're trying to achieve, this box here, and once you have it, how's it going to be used? And let's just think about that. I started this video by saying there's a big cheat involved, and the big cheat is a lot of people will ask for an EPD, but in my experience, they don't really mean that. They say, we need to know your product carbon footprint and we need to know it's to a reliable standard. You might be able to get away with doing the EPD for like the big products in your range, and then not doing an EPD, but doing a variant of it, an LCA, for the other products in your range. And that's the big cheat. The big cheat is that if someone says to you, we need an EPD for all 1,000 products, you have to be very careful with your words. But I suspect they don't really know what they're asking for. Okay, and you have to phrase that very delicately with your clients and just say, yeah, well, what about this instead? And I'll show you, I've got a kind of flowchart about, how to do the what instead. But if they're only going to be using it because they want to reduce their supply chain carbon, then what I'm about to show you might be a good way around the EPD problem. Okay, let's show you what I mean. Let's start here. I'm going to put 3 slides on this, okay? So this is a way that you can think about doing EPDs, and put it in air quotes because I say the big cheat is we're not going to be doing EPDs. Doing EPDs for your entire range, okay? The first thing is take the entire range and think about what the appropriate products are in that range that require you to even think about this problem in the first place. A good example for that is one of my clients makes furniture. Okay, they've got a wide range of products, including tables and desks for offices, But also they've got a whole range of accessories, like spare feet that go on the bottom of desks and screws if you lose your screws and stuff like that. So they've got quite a few products in their range, which are, broadly speaking, the office furniture components. But they've also got all these accessories, which, this appropriate product, people probably don't care about the carbon footprint of the screws and the bolts and the feet and the non-slip, whatever it is going to be, but they do care about the desks. So the first thing to do with your range is to cut it down and say, right, actually, do you know what? The accessories we're not going to bother with, just going to do the main products. Second thing I recommend you do is group the products into similar ranges. Okay, so if you've got, for example, a range of desks and a range of cupboards and a range of, I don't know, what else have you got in there? I don't know, screen dividers, etc. in offices. Group them as such. So you say we've got a group of desks, they're broadly similar. We've got a group of cupboards, they're broadly similar. It might be that you've got metal desks and wooden desks. We'll put them in two different kind of groups, but group them together into ranges so that we start breaking this problem down. I've got 1,000 products. Well, actually get rid of all the accessories. You've now got 200 products. Group them into ranges. So, right, I've got 5 ranges to consider. The next one is which ones you're going to ignore. So you can take each range and you can say, do you know what? It's got, for example, 20 different variants of desk, but we never sell this one and this one. They were in for a project that we did years ago. We're never going to sell any more. Cut them out. So get all the dead wood out of the product ranges. So you've just got to trim down focus. So say out of 1,000, trim it down to 1,000, say a couple of hundred, trim that down to say, 150 or 100, something like that. So now you've got a much smaller range of products to deal with. That makes it more manageable, number one, okay? And down here, only bother with what is important. The second thing to do is to do the EPD for the bestseller. So for each of this group of products that you've done up here, so for example, wooden desks, find out what your bestseller is. And in my experience, there's either a bestseller or a best-selling group of 3. You might have a big desk, small desk, and large, medium-sized desk, that sort of thing. But generally, it's not always true, but generally, some products in some ranges way outsell other products. So choose the most popular product you've got, the bestseller, so that when someone says, have you got an EPD for your desks? You can say, you probably mean the XYZ desk. Here it is. Verify it, publish it, produce it to all the standards, and as I say, see my other videos on how to produce EPDs. As I say, the software is pretty good these days, and the Enistic platform whizzes through certain components. Some components are a lot of work, such as verification publication, but actually putting the basic LCA together is quite straightforward. Get it verified and published, add it to the website, and you've got your EPD for your best seller. Okay, and this is the secret sauce component. I'll just bring the next slide up, which is once you've got the EPD for the bestseller, if I were you, I would think about going back to why you're doing it in this first instance here, about whether you really need an EPD for every other product in that group. Okay, if you have a desk, an EPD for a desk, and next to the desk you've kind of got a desk return that kind of fits in with the desk, etc. They're not similar enough to do an EPD for, but you might say to your client, look, what happens if I duplicate the EPD lifecycle assessment, and the lifecycle assessment is the big calculation in the middle that says the carbon is X. Okay, so every EPD is really just a life cycle assessment, a bigger calculation about what the carbon emissions are and other bits and bobs, but let's concentrate on carbon. You might want to think, right, the LCA, that life cycle assessment in the middle, I'm going to duplicate it from the first desk, amend it slightly. So for example, it's a different color, it's got a different paint, it's got different feet, it's got whatever. And in my experience, there is generally a small amount of difference within ranges. Generally, not always, but generally, amend it slightly and then add that to your website as an LCA, a life cycle assessment, which means that you've got in every group of products, you've got one EPD, which is your main product. That's the thing saying, look, if you want an EPD, here's your EPD. And they say, where's the EPD for example, the green variation? And hopefully, going back to this slide here, how will it be used? Hopefully you can say to your client, look, it's only got a different color paint. It's much the same as the red one. The green one's much the same as the red one. Yeah. So we haven't done the EPD for it, but look, it's exactly the same as the EPD for the red one, but here's a variation LCA. So here's an LCA for the green one. Here's an LCA for the blue one. Here's an LCA for the black one, etc. So That's the sneaky bit. That's the sneaky bit. How do you do an EPD for a range of 1,000? You don't. You split your product into ranges down here, trim it down, dot, 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 so you get a range of products. You EPD the best selling one, and then you duplicate the EPD, modify the life cycle assessment, the calculation slightly. So for example, it's not that paint, it's that paint, it's got these feet, whatever. And then you add that to the website as a life cycle assessment. Okay. And you can say to your client, look, everything else is broadly the same. If you really want it, and it's a big customer, you've got, we really want your business, we'll EPD it for you. But honestly, there's no point because there's only minor variations and these LCAs encapsulate those variations. So, sneaky, huh? How do you do an LCA for all your products? You don't. You do an EPD for your main products, then you do LCAs for all the minor variations that you have of those. What does that look like in practice? It's actually better than it sounds. You've got the duplicate button. So if you go into the Unistic platform, take the LCA, press the duplicate, and then you've got your LCA, your main product that you've put all that time and work and effort in, duplicate it, find the bit that's changed, swap it over, job done. How long did it take? Imagine you had black paint to blue paint, that sort of thing. How long would that take me from start to end? Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 at the outside. Okay, and duplicate, change the component in the software, rerun the report, print the PDF, job done. Okay, really is very straightforward. So that's how I would approach it if I were you. And the trickiest part of all of it, I think, is to realize that, the client, if they say we need an EPD for every product, sometimes they mean it. But in my experience, they don't generally. They mean, A, have you thought about it? B, does it meet standards? And if you can do the EPD for the first one, it goes tick, yes, yes. Yes, we've thought about it. Yes, we've done it all to the standards. Yes, it's been checked, etc. And then these minor variations here are normally fine. Okay, so that's my sneaky trick. That's what I recommend people think about if they've got large ranges. Again, if you're a distributor, manufacturer of a lot of products, import, export, retailer, etc. That's the sort of thing. That's the route I'd go down if I were you. All right, so I hope that was useful. If you've got any comments, let me know. If you try this out with your clients and just say, are you sure you want an EPD for everything? Would a good quality LCA do instead? Let me know how you get on with that. Either put the comments down in the comments of this video or just ping me a note, etc. And if you found that useful, if you want any other sort of advice on anything carbon accounting related, let me know. Let the team here at Unistic know in all the normal ways. And as usual, if we can help you, we certainly will. All right, see you next time.